Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this episode, what I wanted to do for you is I wanted to break down this monstrous box of line that I bring with me everywhere I go when I'm tournament fishing or fun fishing. This box goes with me. I actually have another box. Let me move the camera. Got that box right there. That's my, my bulk line that I carry with me, or that stays here, and I replenish this when needed. But obviously, go through a lot of fishing line. You don't need to go through as much fishing line as I do, more than likely. But I'm using it a lot when I'm tournament fishing. This year, I didn't even place an order because I really hadn't gone through a lot. I do go through a lot during a tournament season when I'm actually tournament fishing. But I wanted to show you guys the box, how crazy it is, and the different types of lines that I use, on a regular basis. So let's get to it. All right, so really it's broken down into two different categories. Really three, but two that I'm primarily going to be using, which is braid and fluorocarbon. There is some monofilament in here. I just pretty much use these old spools of mono that are really just for topwater baits. There's no other scenario that I prefer to use monofilament. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using monofilament. I think monofilament can be a really good choice, especially if you're on a budget and you're using moving baits. If you're not trying to really get your bait down to real, the deepest, water depth that you can, it's really not that big of a deal to use monofilament. It does have a lot of stretch. It is buoyant, and the diameter per 10-pound test rating generally is a little bit bigger. So for those reasons, most of the time I prefer fluorocarbon because it has less stretch, more sensitivity, and just overall I have a lot of confidence in fluorocarbon. Then you have braid out there doing its own thing. All right, so let's talk about braid for a second. And there's really two different types of braid that I use. Three if you factor in the different color options. The first one is one that I use for casting, scenarios, times where I'm trying to make really long casts and retrieve the bait back to the boat. Not like flipping and pitching and, just close quarters type, picking things apart. This is, long distance casting over grass flats and things like that. And that is going to be Tactics. Tactics from Seagar is a really good, it's actually low cost. It's a 4-strand camo braid that actually has a really good texture to it. It holds a round shape, but it has that braided texture, which the reason why I like it for casting applications over grass flats is the fact that it tends to cut through that grass really well. There's other options. The other option I'm going to show you is a lot smoother because it's an 8-carrier braid and it just doesn't cut through stuff as well as this because of that added kind of saw-like texture. So Tactics is definitely my favorite for, throwing frogs, throwing something like the turbo fatties, this thing right here. Anytime I'm making long casts over grass, okay? Tactics is a really good one. But also, even in open water with top waters, I just like the way that this braid sits on the spool. And so, I'll use 40-pound test Tactics on walking baits that I'm trying to get out there really far. So Tactics is one braid that I use. The next one, as you can see here in this lovely bundle, I'll show you a smaller box actually. I don't know why I picked that one up. This right here is Smackdown. This is the other braid that I use, and I use it for two different things. The first thing I use it for is in the flash green color. I use it to back all of my spinning reels. So it's the main line on my spinning reels. I generally use 15 or 20 pound test for that application. And I like that flash green because I like to be able to see that line and see if there's a bite. So that's one application. The other application, which I alluded to earlier, is flipping, pitching, and punching applications around grass. Not around wood. Braid is not a good line to use around wood. It's super strong, but it digs into wood and it will snag constantly. It's really quite annoying, you know, how much as you're bringing a bait over a limb, that braid will just kind of dig in there and it'll cause it to snag as it's coming over a lot. So really for vegetation. But the reason why I like Smackdown is exactly like what we talked about. It's an 8-strand braid, and whenever you have a higher strand count, it's going to be smoother. And this is like super smooth. This is like dental floss smooth. And it just really goes through that cover very silently. And that's really important. A lot of people don't talk about that. But if you're flipping, pitching, and punching, one of the last things you want is that sawing sound as you're lifting and letting your bait drop. So that's really important to use a smooth braid. Whatever you're using, but this is the one that I use, okay? All right, so let's start getting into our fluorocarbons. All right, so Seagar has a wide range of fluorocarbons, as you guys know. Abrazex is one of their primary fluorocarbons that they sell. Abrazex is a really good one. As the name implies, it is extremely abrasion resistant. And so I'll be honest, I probably use this about 10% of the time. But when I'm dragging something on the bottom, a Carolina rig, a football jig, you know, maybe I'm throwing like a Magnum shaky head or something like that, Abrazex is the one that I like to use, okay? Because it's specially formulated for that abrasion resistance. So when I'm grinding, Abrazex is the one that I like to throw. And so usually I'm using higher pound tests. You know, I have some buddies that they love pitching and flipping with it, which it's a great pitching and flipping line. If I don't happen to have a spool of a Tatsu, which we're going to go through, I'll go with Abrazex for sure. So you can do a lot of different things with it, but essentially anytime you're around any type of abrasive cover, which is pretty much everything, Abrazex is a really, really good option. The only reason I may not use it, you know, like 60% of the time, say, I'm just throwing out some random numbers, is because we also have some other good lines that we're going to talk about that have really good abrasion resistance too. But Abrazex is pretty awesome. All right, so the next one is going to be Invisex. This is another one that I use probably about 10 to 20% of the time, and for specific things. Again, you know, there's you know, Tatsu, which we're going to go through, can be used for a wide range of things because it has the abrasion resistance, it has the sensitivity, it has the ability to be you know, pretty limp and not have a lot of memory and be wiry. So there's a lot of things that I like to use that for. But this right here, man, if you're looking for a fluorocarbon that is really soft and really doesn't tangle a lot, but also doesn't get wiry, especially during the winter months. This is actually one of my favorite wintertime fluorocarbons. It just doesn't get quite as hard and wiry during the coldest parts of the year, and specifically for hard baits. That is important. Any bait where as you're reeling it in or working it, it has to have some range of motion. I really think Invisex gives you just a hint more, a little bit of action. Okay, so it's going to actually enhance the action just a little bit more because it's soft and it kind of maintains that softness better in colder water. And so Invisex, jerk baits, crank baits, and those are pretty much it. jerkbaits and crankbaits are the ones that I really like to throw on Invisex. I think that little bit of softness, it may be just an incremental improvement over some other lines in those situations, but sometimes those little improvements end up paying off big. So Invisex is one that I really like to use for jerkbaits and crankbaits because it's soft and it just helps those baits move the way that they need to. Okay, so then we have this beauty right here. Everybody loves Red Label, okay? And the reason everybody loves Red Label from Seaguar is the fact that it's just tough as nails and it's also not that expensive. But with the low cost, you do have some things that may not this may not be the best choice for you. Like I said, it's tough as nails. It is so strong. Nobody complains about the strength of Red Label that I've talked to ever. It is phenomenal. However, it's not going to have the smallest diameter per pound test rating. So like if you're trying to get your baits down real deep, or reduce, just line resistance in the water. So, just essentially getting your baits like crankbaits and things down deeper, or swim baits. This may not be the choice. But if you're just fishing a spinnerbait, a chatterbait, or, throwing a swim jig or something like that, things that you're not really worried about the diving depth, getting down to the deepest depth possible, this is a rock solid choice. I love throwing Red Label on my chatterbaits especially, but also spinner baits and swim jigs. And sometimes like if I'm just casting a swim bait around shallow cover, this is a really good one. And you can use it flipping and pitching too. It's really, really good for that as well. But again, when I'm flipping and pitching, a lot of times it's about the fall rate, and so I want a line that poses less resistance as the bait falls for the pound test rating. So that's why we're going to get into the next one. But Red Label is one that is rock solid if you have a smaller budget to work with. There's nothing wrong with using Red Label, and some of the things that I'm nitpicking on are very, very minor. So like any of these fluorocarbons that I'm showing you, any of these lines can be used by themselves. You don't have to go out and buy every single one of these spools. I'm just telling you, since I have the opportunity to use all of them based on their qualities, this is how I'm using them, but you can, if you have a small budget, pick up some Red Label and go to town. It's pretty good. All right, so the final fluorocarbon that I'm using is one that undoubtedly very expensive. It is a top shelf product. This is something that pro anglers for a very, very long time, whether they're sponsored by Seaguar or not sponsored by Seaguar, they've been using because it is just as good as it gets when it comes to fluorocarbon. And that is Tatsu. So Tatsu is a dual formula fluorocarbon. So they dual resin formula that, Seaguar designs all this stuff. They create all their own resins and that go into their fluorocarbons. So they have a lot of quality control on that. And that's kind of the thing that they tout with Tatsu, is how much quality control they have, and having that dual resin formula allows them to get a ton of different things, different qualities in this line. So it's super abrasion resistant. It is, super limp and soft and, real easy to cast. It has a smaller diameter per pound test rating compared to other lines. It's a tough as nails line too, but it has the finesse. It is it's the best of all worlds when it comes to fluorocarbon. So this one right here, this is for tournament day for most techniques, okay? I may still use like Invisex and a Brazex for those specific techniques we talked about. And I may use Red Label for the specific techniques that we talked about, like chatterbaits and things like that. But everything else, you know, casting, you know, Texas rigs or flipping and pitching, or, you know, if I'm trying to get baits down deeper, like a swim jig down deeper, or a chatterbait down deeper, or move them faster, get a faster fall rate, this is the one that I'm going to choose. So I would say on tournament day, this probably accounts for, again, a random, you know, percentage that probably isn't accurate, but about 60% of my rods will be spooled up with Tatsu. Again, it's kind of wrong in my book to put Tatsu on a rod that Red Label will perform perfectly. So I try not to do that because it is so expensive. And even though I work with Seagar, it's just, to me, it's not something that I want to do. I don't want to waste this line. But anyways, so a lot of rods during game day get spooled up with Tatsu because it's just so good. So anyways, guys, that is my line box. As you can see here, we got, you know, some odds and ends, but we got the spools of monofilament in there and that sort of stuff, but that is it. Oh, no, it's not it. No, it's not at all. Hold on. We almost forgot our leader material. All this was mainline fluorocarbon and braid, but we forgot about our leader. And so for like my spinning rods and also for like Carolina rigs and stuff, this is the leader material I'm going to be using. Yes, you can use any of these main lines as leader material. However, you want to remember that when it comes to leader material, you're talking about a short leader material relative to the length of your main line. If you're using braid, it's super important to use a line that is specially formulated for a leader because of the impact resistance. When you set the hook on a fish, you need to make sure that that line is formulated in a way that it can handle that reduced stretch that you're putting it into. You know, that situation where you've only got a short leader, not as much stretch, not as much ability to you know, handle that hard, you know, hook set. And that's what they did with Gold Label. But also it is a dual structure fluorocarbon as well, just like Tatsu. Very similar qualities to Tatsu, but they are able to achieve a smaller diameter even compared to Tatsu with this line. So it is really well suited for a leader. Again, if I get in a pinch, I run out of this stuff, I'll use probably Tatsu as my leader material. But in general, tournament, game day, it's going to be Gold Label. So, all right, that is the end of my line box. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you guys have any questions about this topic or other topics that I've posted, or just a question that you want me to do a video on, drop that in the comment section below. If you're looking for ways to support this channel, the main way is to go to the link for the St. Jude fundraiser I got going on right now and donate. $1, $10, whatever you can afford. It goes straight to St. Jude, which is obviously a really, really great organization. So, and then also we still have that promotion going on with basketballelectronics.com just for a couple days, where if you buy an HDS 10 Pro and with the HD 3-in-1 transducer, you get a free gift of Active Target 2 system, and if you put in Sonar at checkout, you get a free hoodie. That link is in the description below. You just have to put the HDS and the HD Sonar in the cart, put the Active Target 2 in the cart, and then go ahead and put Sonar at checkout, and you get those 2 free gifts. But anyways, thank you guys for letting me rattle off that promotion real quick. I'm going to see you out on the water. Make sure you trust the process.